She begged me to forgive her, but only after he left her. It was raining the night I stopped trusting her. Not storming, just a light drizzle. The kind that paints everything silver and quiets the world down to a whisper. She was standing at the window, wine glass in hand, the dim kitchen light catching the curve of her collarbone. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked, effortlessly, cruelly beautiful, and I remember the feeling right after that. Distance. Like I was watching a painting I used to know the story behind, and now I couldn't read the caption anymore. We had been married for 11 years. No kids. Just the two of us in a house that used to feel too big but had recently begun to feel small in the worst way. Her name is Elena, and if you asked me then, I would have said she was the love of my life. She still made coffee in the mornings, still folded my shirts just the way I liked. But something had changed. Not in the big cinematic ways you read about. No lipstick on the collar. No perfume that wasn't hers. Just small things, like how her phone was always face down now, and how she smiled at me like she was remembering someone else. That night, I asked her if she was happy. She didn't lie, but she didn't answer either. She just said, "I'm tired, Noah. I'm just so tired all the time." Tired of what? She didn't say. Just turned back to the window and sipped her wine. And I stood there in our kitchen, watching the woman I loved slowly disappear behind silence and glass. The first real crack came 3 weeks later. I was working late. Elena was supposedly having dinner with an old college friend. Nicole, I think. We were supposed to meet up afterward for a drink. She never showed. She texted me at 11:38 p.m. "Sorry. Went longer than expected. I'm home now, exhausted. Rain check? XO." Something about it felt off. Not the message, but the punctuation. Elena always signed off texts with just X. Never XO. It was stupid. Trivial. I told myself I was being paranoid. People change. Maybe she'd just had a couple of drinks. Maybe she was tired. But the next morning I checked the coat rack. Her umbrella was dry. And I knew. I didn't know what I knew, but I knew enough to stop pretending. I didn't confront her. Instead, I began to watch. Not in a way that would make a good thriller. No secret cameras. No GPS tracker. Just observation. A man studying his wife the way you study a horizon before the storm reaches the shore. I started noticing patterns. She'd start getting texts late at night and angle her body away from me in bed. Her showers got longer. Her laughter got quieter. And one evening, I caught her humming in the kitchen. That might sound innocent, but she never hummed. Not unless she was distracted. And as she stood there chopping herbs and swaying to a song I couldn't hear, it hit me. She was humming someone else's music. There was someone else. I didn't know his name yet, didn't know his face, but I could feel him. He was in the space between us, in the pauses in our conversations, in the way she stared at nothing and smiled like it whispered something just for her. I had a plan. It wasn't a plan for revenge or drama. I wasn't going to break plates or scream accusations. I just wanted the truth. One night, she said she was going to a gallery opening with friends. It was a Thursday. I remember that because it used to be our night. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then followed. She took the Civic, not the Subaru. Another detail. I stayed far enough back not to be seen. Just a man in a different car, in a different world, driving through a city that suddenly didn't feel like mine. She didn't go to the gallery. She went to the sea. There's this overlook near Seabird Point. Cliffs, wind, the kind of place you go when you need to feel small. I parked behind a black SUV and killed my lights. I watched her get out of the car. She stood by the edge for a long while, arms crossed, letting the wind tangle her hair. Then he stepped out of the SUV. He was younger, maybe early 30s. Dark coat, confident walk. He didn't say anything, just walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist like they did this every Thursday. And she leaned back into him like it was home. Not hesitation, not guilt, familiarity. That was the moment. Not when I saw them kiss. Not even when I saw her reach for his hand the way she used to reach for mine. No, it was when she smiled. That smile she used to give me after long talks and short kisses. That smile I hadn't seen in months. That was what broke me. She was happy, just not with me. And I knew then, the woman I married was gone. But the story was just beginning. The sea was louder than I remembered. Waves crashed below the cliff like they were trying to pull the whole coast into the ocean. I sat in the car, engine off, fingers frozen around the steering wheel, watching my wife kiss a man I didn't know. She kissed him the way someone does when they're not afraid of being seen. Openly, easily, like love was a language they'd spoken for years. And I just watched. You imagine, in moments like these, that you'd explode, that your fists would act before your heart caught up. But I didn't move, didn't breathe, because some betrayals don't land like bombs. They land like fog, slow, quiet, cold. And when you finally notice it's there, it's already everywhere. She got home late that night. I was in bed, lights off, pretending to sleep. I heard her heels click down the hallway, the soft shuffle as she undressed in the dark. She slid into bed beside me like nothing had happened, like I didn't see what I saw. She smelled like salt and someone else's cologne. I didn't say a word. The next morning, I watched her make coffee, just like she always did. Same mug, same creamer, same little hum in her throat. But I saw it now, all of it. Every detail was a lie wrapped in routine. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she smiled when handing me my cup. It wasn't love anymore. It was performance. And I had front row seats. She asked how I slept. Fine, I said. She kissed my cheek. I flinched. She didn't notice. Or she pretended not to. I started keeping a journal. Not to write poetry or pour my heart out. Just facts. April 10th, 8:14 p.m. Says she's going to book club. Wears new perfume. April 11th, 10:27 p.m. Phone lights up with unknown number 3 times. She doesn't answer in front of me. April 12th, 6:42 a.m. Humming again. Same song. Always after late nights. Pattern emerged. Her lies had rhythms, intervals, repeats. She was predictable in her betrayal. I told my friend Matt, not everything, just enough. You sure? He asked. Maybe it's work stress. Maybe you're reading too much into it. I handed him a photo. I'd taken it with my phone, zoomed in from the overlook. Her hand in his, her face lit by that smile. Matt went quiet. He studied the image for a long time before sliding it back. I'm sorry, man. And then, softer, what are you going to do? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. That weekend, we went to dinner with her parents. Her father laughed too loud. Her mother complimented Elena's dress, said she looked radiant. I stared at my wife across the table, wine glass half full, and wondered how much of her radiance came from another man. When her mother asked about kids again, Elena gave the same rehearsed answer. Maybe next year. Things are just so busy right now. I looked at her and thought, busy with what? Exactly? But I smiled and said nothing, because the part of me that used to want to fight for her was now just watching the clock, counting the seconds until I could leave the table, the house, the lie. I waited for the affair to end. I don't know why. Maybe I hoped she'd come back to me, realize what she was risking. Maybe she'd wake up one morning and remember the life we built. The nights we sat on our porch talking about the names of stars. The road trip to Maine where she made me pull over just to take a photo of cows in the fog. But she didn't come back. She drifted further, smiled less, laughed more at things I didn't hear. She started locking her phone. Then came the silence. Not the absence of sound, the presence of it. The kind of silence that fills a room and makes it impossible to think. One night, she came home late again. Said the traffic was hell. I asked her if she loved me. She blinked, caught off guard. Of course I do. Then look me in the eyes and say it again. She hesitated. And in that pause, I heard the truth. I'm tired, Noah, she whispered. Can we not do this tonight? I nodded. Sure, another night then. But there wouldn't be another night, because something inside me had shifted. And once you feel the weight of a lie settle in your bones, you can't pretend it's not there. It was a Thursday when I finally heard his voice. I hadn't planned it. I wasn't snooping. I was just walking past the study on my way to the kitchen when I heard it through the door. A low, warm murmur on speakerphone. "I miss you already," he said. Then silence. And Elena's voice followed. "Don't say that." Quiet, almost guilty, but not enough. "Then come see me," he said. "I can't. Not tonight." "Why?" A beat. "Because he's home." The air left my lungs. Not from shock, from confirmation. I stepped back, quiet as breath, and walked to the kitchen like I hadn't heard my marriage rot from the inside out. She came out 10 minutes later, phone in hand, eyes unreadable. She smiled. "Hey, I was just on the phone with Nicole." I nodded. "Tell her I said hi." She flinched. Just a flicker, barely visible. But I saw it, and for the first time, she knew I was watching. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake beside her, listening to the slow rhythm of her breathing, wondering how long she'd been gone from me, how many nights she'd lied, how many mornings she kissed me with his taste still on her lips. And still, I said nothing. I think part of me wanted to see how far she'd go, to see what betrayal looked like when no one stopped it. The next day, I started planning. Not out of rage, out of necessity, because when someone lies to you long enough, you start building exits in your head. Emergency doors only you can see. I opened a separate bank account. I moved my keepsakes to a storage unit across town. My father's pocket watch, the first edition novel she gave me when we were dating, a box of letters I never sent. I backed up everything. Emails, texts, photos, and I waited, because I knew something was coming. It arrived on a Sunday morning. She made pancakes, wore the soft blue robe I bought her last Christmas. Her hair was messy, barefaced, beautiful, too beautiful. She poured me coffee and asked, "Do you want to go for a walk today? It's sunny." I stared at her, not because of what she said, because of what I saw. Her phone was unlocked on the counter, open to messages, and I saw his name, Julian. I didn't look at the messages. Not then, because I didn't want her to know. Not yet. So I said, "Yeah, let's walk." We walked the lakeside trail like we used to. She talked about nothing. Ducks, the breeze, a new bakery opening downtown, and I watched her lips move, wondering how many of her words were true. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it, because you can hold someone's hand while they're already walking away from you. That night, I waited until she was asleep. I crept back to the kitchen, opened her phone, and took photos of every message I found. There weren't hundreds. There were thousands. Weeks, months, voice notes, photos. One message stopped me cold. "Julian, you look like mine tonight." "Elena, I am." I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time. Long enough for the fridge to cycle off, for the silence to hum in my bones. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because it was over. The grief had calcified, hardened into something else. Not hatred, just clarity. The next morning, I made her breakfast. French toast, fresh berries, her favorite tea. She blinked in surprise when she walked in. "What's this for?" "You," I said. "You've been tired lately. I thought you deserved something nice." She smiled, a real one, and I realized painfully she still thought I didn't know, that I was still the fool she kissed goodnight while texting someone else under the covers. And maybe I had been, but not anymore. The day I stopped loving her was quiet. There was no fight, no scream, no final insult to brand into memory. Just a moment, small, forgettable to anyone else. But to me, it was everything. She was standing in the garden, barefoot, watering the herbs. Sunlight caught her hair, and she laughed at something on her phone. That kind of laugh that escapes before you even think about it. It wasn't for me. It hadn't been for a long time. And as I stood by the window, watching the woman I had built a life with disappear into someone else's world, I felt nothing. No rage, no sorrow. Just the dull, steady realization that I was finally free of the weight of loving someone who didn't want to be loved by me anymore. I waited until Thursday. That was their night. She said she had a yoga class across town. It had become a running joke between us. "You're gonna be sore tomorrow?" I tease, handing her a protein bar. She'd wink and say, "That's the goal." Turns out the only stretching she did was the truth. That evening I packed a bag, just a small one, essentials only. I wasn't leaving, not yet, but I was giving myself the option, because soon she'd run out of hers. At 8:04 p.m. she left. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. It was easier than I expected. She took the usual route, same traffic light, same gas station, same turnoff near the bluff. I parked 2 cars back, engine off. She pulled into a private lot behind an art gallery. I saw the lights from the second floor, loft-style windows, candles, music, and him, Julian. He opened the door the second she knocked. He kissed her like he owned her, and she let him. I didn't go up. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I took a photo. One single photo. Her body in his arms. Her face tilted toward his. Their silhouettes framed in golden light. And then I left, because this time I had what I needed. The next morning, she was cheerful, made cinnamon rolls, played music while brushing her teeth. It was all wrong, all staged. I set the photo on the kitchen table, face down under her favorite mug, and I went for a walk. When I came back, she was sitting at the table, the photo in her hands. Her face was pale. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "I didn't sit. Last night, after yoga, or should I say, after Julian." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I waited, not because I expected honesty, but because I wanted to watch her try to spin the unspinnable. "It's not what it looks like," she finally whispered. "Then tell me what it is." She set the photo down, slowly, like it might burn her. "It was a mistake." I nodded. "How many times did you make it?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Noah, please. I never meant for it to go this far." "But it did." She reached for my hand. I stepped back. "How long?" I asked. 3 months. That was a lie. I knew it was longer. The messages dated back nearly a year. But I let her have it. Let her start with a lie before she drowned in truth. "Do you love him?" She didn't answer. "Do you love me?" Her lips trembled. I thought I did. I really did. But not now. She shook her head, slowly, like she didn't want to believe her own answer. "Then why stay?" That question finally broke her. She collapsed into the chair, hands over her face. "Because I was afraid. Because I didn't want to lose everything. Because I didn't know how to choose." I stood there, listening, to the sound of a heart breaking that wasn't mine. And I realized something. You can forgive someone for what they did, but you can't forgive them for who they became. The silence after betrayal is louder than any scream. Elena sat at the kitchen table with her face in her hands, and I just watched. Her body shook in small, controlled sobs, but they didn't move me. Once I would have held her. Once I would have whispered that we could fix it. Now I just waited for her to stop crying, because this wasn't grief. It was consequence. "What happens now?" she asked finally, her voice raw. I poured myself a glass of water, took a slow sip. "That depends on you." She looked up, eyes red. "What does that mean?" "It means if you want to be with him, go. You don't have to sneak around anymore." She winced like I'd slapped her. It wasn't just about him. But it was never about me. She didn't respond. Not at first. Instead, she stood and walked toward the window, arms folded tight across her chest. "I didn't plan it, Noah. I didn't wake up one day and decide to cheat on you. It just happened. You fell into him, like a pothole. I was lonely. You stopped seeing me. That stung. I saw you every damn day." "No," she whispered. "You looked at me, but you didn't see me." We stood in that room, 2 ghosts arguing over the ashes of a marriage. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why she didn't talk to me, why she didn't try. But I already knew the answer, because she had found something easier. Someone easier. Someone who didn't require the messy work of healing. So what, now you want to fix this? I asked. She didn't answer right away. I don't know. I just know I don't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you chose him. She closed her eyes. It was never that simple. It is now. She turned to me then, really turned, like she was just seeing me for the first time in months. Noah, do you still love me? The question landed between us like a dying bird. I didn't answer right away, because I wanted to lie. I wanted to say yes, but I had done enough lying for both of us. I don't know, I said, but I know I don't trust you. She nodded slowly. Her shoulders sagged like she'd been holding up a house that finally collapsed. We spent the rest of the day apart. She went into the guest room. I went into the garage. I sat there for hours, staring at the wall, trying to remember the first time I knew she was slipping away. It wasn't one moment. It was 100 small ones, 1,000, like water carving stone. That night, we didn't speak. She made herself tea. I made myself distance. The house, once filled with shared rituals, had become a museum of former intimacy. In the morning, she was gone. Her robe was still draped over the chair. Her mug still sat in the sink. But she was gone. No note, no text, just absence. And for the first time in a long time, I exhaled without pain. Around noon, I got a message. Elena, I need time. Please don't shut the door yet. I just need time. I stared at the screen for a long time. Time? Time was what I gave her every day while she lied to my face. But I didn't reply, because silence was the only truth I had left to give. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. Not a call, not a knock, just the echo of her absence in every corner of the house. Her perfume still lingered on the pillows. Her toothbrush sat untouched by the sink. Her coat still hung by the door like she might return at any moment and pretend nothing had shattered. But I didn't pretend. I lived inside the wreckage. I went through phases. Denial first. Maybe this was salvageable. Maybe if she chose me now, we could start again. Then anger. At her for what she did. At myself for letting it happen under my roof. Then clarity. The most dangerous phase of all. Because once clarity arrives, there's no going back. On the 4th day, she returned. I heard her keys in the lock while I was in the kitchen. I didn't move. She stepped inside, slowly, like someone entering a room where something had died. Noah? Her voice was small, ashamed. I turned. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was pulled back carelessly, no makeup, hands trembling as she gripped the strap of her bag. Can we talk? I nodded, but said nothing. She sat down on the edge of the couch, not curled up like she used to, not comfortable, like a guest in her own life. I ended it with him, she said quietly. No reaction. She swallowed. I told him it was over, that I couldn't do it anymore, that I needed to fix this. Because you want to, or because he left you? She flinched. I had hit something true. I realized I was chasing something that never existed, she said. It was a fantasy. He didn't know me. Not really. I raised an eyebrow. And I do. You did. Once. And I destroyed that. Yes, you did. The words hung between us, sharp and irreversible. She looked down. I don't expect forgiveness, Noah. I just want a chance to prove I'm not that person anymore. And there it was, the classic plea, the promise of transformation, the I'm not who I was. But change isn't a speech. It's a graveyard of choices you no longer make. Why now? I asked. She looked up, eyes wet. Because when I left, I thought I was walking towards something better, and all I found was silence. Empty, echoing silence. You were my home, Noah, even when I didn't know how to be yours. I let her speak. I let her pour the words out like water from a cracked jug. But I didn't offer comfort, because I wasn't sure she deserved it. Because forgiveness isn't a reflex. It's a choice, and I hadn't made mine yet. That night, she stayed in the guest room again. I heard her crying. I didn't go to her, not out of cruelty, but because if I gave her comfort too soon, she'd believe the pain was over. And it wasn't. Not for either of us. The next morning, she was making coffee, just like always, but nothing about it was the same. "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while," she said. I nodded. "Probably for the best. Do you want me to come back?" A long pause. Then, "I want to know who I am without you first." She blinked. A soft, unexpected tear. "I think I need to figure that out too." She left at 10:14 a.m. and for the first time in weeks, the house felt honest. Empty, but honest. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, something in me began to thaw. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a kind of stillness, a breath between what we were and what we might never be again. The house stayed quiet, but it wasn't heavy anymore. I started sleeping through the night, eating real meals, taking walks not because I needed to escape, but because the world outside started calling again. The silence was no longer punishment. It was healing. She called me one Sunday. It was raining. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, how are you?" I paused. "Better." She didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, "Can we meet? Not to talk about us. Just coffee. Somewhere neutral." I thought about it and said yes. We met at a small cafe by the pier, the kind of place with chipped mugs and seagulls screeching in the background. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window. Same sweater I bought her 3 birthdays ago. No makeup, hair in a braid. She looked softer, not in a weak way, in a real way. We talked about work, her sister, the weather, avoided the minefield between us, until she said, "I saw a therapist." I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, twice a week, since I left. She says I've been living with a deep need to be desired, to be seen, that I used men like mirrors, trying to find a version of myself I could love." I sipped my coffee. "And did you find her?" She smiled faintly. "Not yet, but I stopped looking in other people. That counts for something." She reached into her bag, pulled out a small envelope, slid it across the table. "What's this?" "Every message between me and Julian. Printed. All of it." "Why?" "Because if we ever try again, I want you to know I'm not hiding anything. And if we don't, I want to be someone who doesn't lie anymore." I stared at the envelope, but didn't open it, because trust isn't found in paper. It's rebuilt in time. We walked by the pier after that, not touching, not close, just two people with too much history and no clear future. And for the first time, that felt okay. Not every story needs a neat ending. Some just need a pause, a space between chapters. That night, I sat alone in the living room, holding the envelope. I could feel the weight of it, pages and pages of betrayal. But I didn't open it. Instead, I set it on the mantel, unopened, not out of denial, but because I already knew what it said. And the only question left was what I wanted to say next. A week after the cafe, she knocked on my door, not with a suitcase, not with apologies, just her hands in her coat pockets, eyes uncertain. "Do you want to go for a drive?" I hesitated, then grabbed my keys. We didn't talk much at first, just drove down the coast, windows cracked, ocean wind threading through the silence. There's something about long drives, the way movement makes space for words. Eventually, she spoke. "Do you remember that storm we got caught in? Our first year here?" I nodded. "You made a joke about dying soaked but together." I couldn't stop laughing. I remembered the way she looked that night, hair dripping, mouth wide with joy. She looked at me now. I think that was the last time I felt whole. We stopped at a cliffside turnout, same spot where I had seen her with him. The wind was strong, the ocean below relentless. "I came here a lot," she said. "I know." She glanced sideways. "Of course you do." We stood in silence, letting it hurt, letting it heal. "You said you don't know if you love me anymore," she said. I nodded. "I still don't." She closed her eyes, but I kept going. "But I know this. I don't hate you. I don't want revenge. I don't want to punish you. I looked at her. I just want peace. She turned toward me, slow and unsure. Can I be part of that peace? Even if it's not as your wife? Even if it's just as someone who hurt you but is trying not to anymore? I didn't answer with words, just took her hand. Not as a promise, not as a beginning, just as a moment, a small one. But maybe that was enough. We stood there until the sun dipped behind the horizon. The sky turned lavender. The ocean breathed below. No final words. No dramatic declarations. Just two people. A pause. A softness. A silence that, for once, didn't mean something was broken. It just meant something was beginning again. Whatever that was. I was ready to find out.